So what we're doing today is we're actually going to look at how diffusion works using Skittles. So what I have here is I just have a Petri plate. So this is the bottom of the Petri plate. This is actually the cap of it. And then I just have a piece of white paper underneath just because it makes it a little easier to see. But Skittles are coated in coloring. So we want to see if that color is going to diffuse. So what I have here is just a small, very, very small, it's like a quarter cup measuring cup of warm water. And the reason I use warm water is because warm water actually causes diffusion to occur at a quicker rate. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pour a little bit of that water in the Petri plate. And you'll notice that I actually am a little OCD about how I put my Skittles together, but there is actually a reason for this. Is whenever we do this experiment, it's easiest and it's best seen when you have at least two of the same color together. So I tried to group my Skittles according to color, and I at least tried to have at least two of them that are the same color next to each other. Yours don't have to be as perfect, but just make sure that you have at least two colors together wherever they're located. So just going to pour a little bit of water, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pour it in the center, not too quickly, not too slowly, just because it will end up causing the Skittles to move. And I'm just coating essentially the bottom of that plate. And so now we're just going to watch and see what happens to the color of the Skittles. So what started happening was that the concentration of color was really, really concentrated out along the edge where the Skittles were located, because that's where the most color was. So as we added that water was a medium through which the color could diffuse. So it went from an area of higher concentration around the edges and then diffused toward the center until it basically stopped moving, because now we have equal concentrations. If I actually pick up one of these Skittles, you'll notice the bottom of it is basically white. So essentially what happened is that the color diffused from where it was highly concentrated on the Skittles to the center where there was less concentration. So we went from a higher concentration of that coloring to a lesser concentration until it was equal. So you notice that the bands of color here are basically equally bright from the edge toward the center. And you also notice that the colors didn't mix, and that's because they have a different density. The colors are all slightly different, so they don't mix well. So you can actually see the individual bands, which is why it's important to do those two colors together. It makes those bands a little easier to see. But that's our concept of diffusion, just going from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. And that works with coloring like we saw in the Skittles. It works when we have concentrations of salt, or if we have concentrations of food color. If you put food coloring into just a little bit of water, you'll notice that the food coloring will actually start where you dropped it, and it'll start moving throughout the water until the water is a uniform color. That's also another example of diffusion.